you started Whole Foods in 1978 right here in Austin. I believe you started it with $45,000. Is that right?
Yeah, we were trying to raise 50, but all we could get was 45. That's all we could beg out of friends and family. And we said, let's give it a go.
And there were other organic grocery stores around back then, or were there not? Or it was what was
Back then there was a transition from sort of health food stores to sort of natural food stores. And there were a couple. I worked for one called the Good Food Company. Back they had it at their peak, they had 5 small stores, and I worked there for a little while.
I mean, was it mostly hippies who were into this kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's all hippies.
Give us a little sense of your journey. You're a bit of a hippie yourself.
I suppose so. I mean, I was interested in all things counterculture. I grew my hair long, did my share of illicit substances, so perhaps I qualified as a hippie. But, I moved into this commune, I suppose, a co-op, back when I was at the University of Texas. I guess I was about 23, just on the long-term plan. I was just taking courses, auditing classes, just had to control my own education. Mm-hmm. And I moved in this co-op as a vegetarian co-op. I wasn't a vegetarian. I actually just moved in because I thought, I bet you really cool people, particularly maybe cool women, live in a vegetarian co-op. And that turned out to be the case. And I had my food consciousness awakened. I became a vegetarian. I learned how to cook. For the first time, I made this connection between, I knew exercise could make you feel good, but I had never made a connection that what you ate could make you feel good. I had just thought of the human body as sort of a machine, and you just put fuel in it like a car, except actually the humanity, the human body, human organism is far more complex, and it's not just fuel, it needs a variety of nutrients. And so my food consciousness was awakened. I became the food buyer for that co-op. I went to work for Good Food at a small natural food store. And I didn't know it, but I found the purpose of my life. And I was quickly on fire and came back to the co-op one day and said, Renee, my girlfriend, we should start our own store. And she thought that was such a cool idea. I often wondered how my life would be different. And she said, that's stupid. What do we know about doing a store? We don't want to do that. I may never have done it. But she was excited, and we went and started hustling money. And part of it, I think when you're an entrepreneur, most entrepreneurs are sort of on fire about their ideas. They're so passionate about them. And that's sort of intoxicating to other people because they feel the passion and they want to get involved in that passion.
People met you and they got excited about it too.
I mean, we're like panhandlers, except we're looking for money to fuel our dreams.
Were there venture funds back then that you'd pitched, or was that not a thing?
Yeah, the truth is, a venture capital business was just getting started, really,
and not really in Austin at that time.
No, and we did. 10 years later, in 1988, we went out and pitched VCs, and talk about getting rejected, because we had a good business. We were making money, and we were doing about 40 or 50 million in sales. We were making good profits.
But they were focused on technology companies at that point.
The ones we did go out to Sand Hill Road, and I met with some, and actually one of those did invest in us, Oak Investments, which their retail partner Jerry Gallagher was very interested in it. But anyway, I like the venture capitalist. And a story that I'll tell you is that I did get turned down. We did find 3 to invest, but we mostly got turned down. And I just couldn't believe anybody would turn us down. It was like, that's such a good idea. And I remember one guy, he turned me down, and for some reason he had to tell me why he was turning me down. He said, you kind of have a cute little business here, but I just really wonder how big it can be because, guys are all just a bunch of hippies. And as far as I can tell, you're just selling food to other hippies. How big a business can that really be in the long term?
He didn't see us becoming something that every suburban housewife would demand to have nearby their house.
He didn't. And he said, in case I'm wrong, I just don't see how you guys could possibly compete with Safeway and H-E-B and the big supermarket chains. They're going to kill you. I ran into him 7 years later.
Yeah.
And we'd gone public just 4 years after the VC money, and Whole Foods was rocketing up and growing all over the United States. And he said that was the single biggest mistake he ever made as a VC investor. So we did get, and just think about it, Joe, to show you what valuations were with VCs. Here we are, $40 or $50 million a year business, making $1 million or so in actual profits.
Actual profit,
and
wow.
EBITDA of a couple of million. I'm off there, and so we sold 34% of the company for $4.5 million.
What?
You once asked me why I wasn't richer. I'm telling you why, because the valuations back then were nothing. We sold more than a third of the business.
So it was valued at like 12, 13 post or something.
Well, no, post. We got the Ford. About 12 million, 13 million post.
Wow. With profits.
That was,
and growth.
That was less than 10 times our cash flow. And we were growing at
the pre-money was less than 10 times the cash flow. That's crazy.
Yeah. And we were growing at 40% clip at that point, 40 or 50% clip.
All these old VCs had it easy, huh?
They do. Now you have to actually pay the entrepreneur something of real value.
It's very different. In this market, this would be like 800 posts.
Well, it's like, Wild Oats copied Whole Foods and came along after it at a far higher valuations than we ever got.
It's easier when you get people giving you lots of money to build. You had to build over time. Tell me more about that journey. So you couldn't just burn money to grow. You actually had to grow efficiently over time. That's really hard.
We actually really Whole Foods, the Safer Way, which was the first store in 1978. It was in an old house. We had that $45,000. We lost $23,000 in the first year, and that was with Renee and I living in the store and not really taking any money out. But we started making money the second year, and actually I figured out.
What'd you learn between the first and second? Lots of things, of course. Were there key?
I didn't have a business background, but what I am is a reader. I literally read hundreds of business books. I just read everything. When I wasn't working, I was reading.
So you got your MBA while you're building your
Yes.
company.
Plus my father he was a successful business guy. He'd been an accounting professor at Rice University when I was growing up. And he became my mentor. For the first 16 years of the business, I never made a big move without checking with my dad first, which is good because I'm pretty sure I'd have driven the Whole Foods bus right off the cliff if my dad hadn't, said, "What the hell are you doing? Grab the wheel, son."
So the second year, how much did you lose?
We made $5,000 the second year. I was really cocky. Man, we made $5,000. I got a viable business here. I know. Let's relocate it and triple the size. Which, of course, the existing investors said, "No, let's stay where we are and make some money, and then maybe we'll see how you do." And I said, "How about if I find new capital?" And I did. I found new capital, and then we were able to make that relocation. And that relocation and a merger with another small natural food store changed the name to Whole Foods. And that first Whole Foods market it quickly became the highest volume natural food store in the United States. It just took off. It was incredible success.
And when you started the business, you were always a capitalist as well as a hippie from the start. You were trying to make a lot of money.
No, I wasn't when I first started out. Although I'd been involved in the co-op movement. I was living in a co-op. I'd been a member of food co-ops, and I remember this was back when Star Wars this was late 70s. Star Wars came out in 1976, and I think The Empire Strikes Back came in like 78 or 79. And when I opened my store and left the co-ops, they nicknamed me Darth Vader. I had clearly gone over to the dark side because it's supposed to be food for people, not for profit. Here I was trying to make money, and then I had clearly been corrupted by capitalism. But I was actually thought of myself back then, Joe, as a democratic socialist. I mean, that's kind of what I was educated in. I'd studied philosophy, but an interesting thing happened when I started rejected that philosophy because clearly people saw me as greedy and selfish, and I was just trying to make a payroll and earn a little bit of money. So I began to, in my reading, I began to read people like Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek and Milton Friedman and Henry Hazlitt. And at one point, I think I read every book that was in the laissez-faire book catalog. And they told me I was one of their best customers because I just bought everything and read everything. And I just realized this makes a lot more sense in the world, that capitalism is not a force for evil. Capitalism is a force for good. It's helping humanity to progress. And there might be bad actors in capitalism, just like there are bad actors in business, or bad doctors, bad lawyers, bad politicians. But in general, business creates value for other people. And I certainly saw myself as a value creator.